no matter what the race is always, whoa, now it's official, eh?
I forgot to record it. Yeah, it's official now.
No matter how the length of the race or how it's organized, the logistics of the thing, the goal is always the same for each TA, right? Get in and get out as fast as possible with everything you need and with nothing extra. But the problem is with our racing is like, Expedition Oregon was quite simple because we saw the same bin every TA. And, a team of 4, we had 2 bins. So all we did is we put 2 people in one bin, 2 people in the other bin, and that was it. Nobody's stuff, basically intercrossed. Sometimes when you have 4 people in one bin, then obviously it gets more complicated. But the biggest thing that I've found that works the best is just simple Ziploc bags. Having a clear bag that you can look in and have it labeled for like each leg, the number of hours of food that are in there, and maybe the number of miles that you're going to do, just to kind of help your brain. Like, what are we doing next? Oh, we're going to trek for 4 hours and 10 miles. So basically the biggest thing is just keeping everybody's stuff organized. And we like to do it, most teams I race with, we do it per leg. Now I have seen some guys just have a bag of clothes in their box and, maybe their food separated, and that's fine. But sometimes you spend too much time rummaging through your clothing. Whereas if you're going to have a bike leg, then obviously, bike shorts, the bare minimum bike stuff. And, if there's a possibility of needing to change a shirt, I mean, basically we do change our clothes as little as possible. And the biggest thing is just anytime you change your shoes, you're changing socks. So every food bag usually has a pair of socks in it. And then another thing that works great is color coding. If everybody on the team had a color, so that you knew that anybody with orange duct tape, that's Mary's food, hands off. If it's, blue, whatever. And then whoever comes into the TA and gets going first, they can start divvying out bags. Like, here's Matt's is blue, here's, Cliff's is red, whatever. So there's lots of little ways to do it, but the biggest thing is pre-race, make sure everybody's on the same doing the same kind of thing, so that as you come into the TA, you're talking about what has to happen next. And then you get to the TA, you do what you need to do, and then you get out. I mean, a lot of times I can go from a bike or run to a bike without ever taking my backpack off, because all you got to do is your food should already be on your bike, or you can add it to your food bins or whatever, but you usually don't have to pick up too much extra stuff. So again, it really varies race to race, obviously, because if you're going to go out for 24 hours, you're going to need more than, a few extra things. Lights, food, clothing are always the checklist. And then another good thing is to have in your TA bin, maybe a little cheat sheet laminated or in a Ziploc bag taped to the lid to help you guys remind, like, hey, this trek, like, we got to bring climbing gear, or we need this, or, any extra little notes are always a good thing. But the biggest thing is just talk about your TA before you get there, so that when you're there, everybody's on the same page, knowing what they need to do next. I mean, that's kind of the overall gist of it.
Awesome.
Like I said, it's hard until like I can coach somebody through pre-race just because that race might be organized a little bit differently, or during the race. And then, we got, like, Matt can attest to this. He's a navigator. So when he comes in, he's focused on the maps. So basically whoever gets done first, which is usually me, then I'm helping Matt pack his gear. And then, so we're all moving out at the same time. It's basically just kind of, yeah, I don't know.
That's a really good start.
If that makes sense.
It does. It does. And so I realize I forgot to introduce you, but Mary is one of the best adventure racers in the world, and you won't. And she races with a variety of teams, but whichever team she's racing on is better because she's on it. And she,
no pressure.
No, it's not pressure. It's just.
Thank you.
It's a great resource to discuss this, because her versatility as a racer, in terms of who she's racing with. It's not like you've raced with one team your whole adventure racing career. You're able to step into a number of different scenarios, and you're always efficient. You're always really good at going fast. And so that's why we asked you to help us out with this. And Matt has that same reputation of being able to be flexible and go fast. So Matt's now our local guy here in Maine, so we get to pick his brain a lot. But Matt, anytime you feel like you want to chip in anything, we'd love to hear your thoughts as well.
Well, there's not much that I can add to Mary's TA masterclass. I'm more like TA 101. When I race with Mary, I just do whatever she says as fast as I can. And I just try to do whatever, like I just try to get out of the way and do whatever she does. But and yeah, Mary's super efficient at the transitions, and it's awesome. But I think like a couple things that to put my TA 101 in is like Mary was saying, the planning, the pre-race planning is like that's the being efficient starts with that, and having a plan for each section. And you know, like when we race together, like before, like from the course schematic, like we usually have a really good start on planning for each section, and maybe a wild guess on the timelines and the distances and specific equipment and things like that. And then when we go through the maps, usually there's a few little details here and there to add on to. So sometimes sometimes I'm doing the maps, and if Mary is doing other equipment prep and food and things like that, and then when we're at some point we say, okay, we need to combine these two things, and I will put whatever input I have from the maps, and we'll make notes on that, and then Mary helps whatever they've come up with, whatever she's come up with in doing the equipment prep and reading the race rule book or route book and whatnot, and we combine all those notes together into one. And then yeah, like having, like ideally you can have, yeah, like kind of a bag for each section is awesome. And you know, like Mary was saying, like having food, and if you can put spare lights, if you have batteries or lights or whatnot in that bag, and clothes and socks and whatever else you need for that section, is a really good start. And then let's see, like for me, a lot of the time when we get to the, like in the middle of an expedition race, when we're beat down and tired, and I've been navigating for a day and a half straight, and when we're getting close, I'll say, Mary, what are we doing next, and what do we have to do in this transition? And she'll tell me, and then like 10 seconds later, I look at the map and I forget everything she just said. And then I ask her again, and somehow I don't have black eyes at the end of the race. So that just tells how patient and what a good teammate she is. But having someone on the team thinking about the TA ahead and what you need to do is kind of a key point. I don't know, to me it's a key point for sometimes helping out the navigator, or just keeping just talking about it beforehand to get the team on the same plan and have a game plan going in.
I've got a question for you guys, and I do want to get back to how you guys observe each other in the TA, and like how you say Mary's always usually the first one done, and I'd love to hear how you think she gets that done. But just quickly, do you guys have a team captain when it comes to transitions, like someone who's in charge of the transition? Or is it like, I've heard like the top teams don't even speak in transition, like it's all like known somehow what everyone's going to do. How does that work for you guys?
Well, again, it comes down to the key is communication before you get to the TA, so that when you come in, everyone knows exactly what's happening next. Okay, we're going to go bike for 12 hours. What do I need? And so we're actually talking about that a good, maybe 5-10 minutes out, so that, obviously if you plan ahead, sometimes things shift around, right? So maybe we thought our bike leg number 3 was actually going to be in the daylight, but now it's going to be in the dark. So, and where the Matt and his map communication comes in is he can be like, hey, we're going to start off with a really big climb. So even though you're freezing coming in off a paddle, don't put all your jackets on, because we're going to be stopping 5 minutes later. So it's those kind of things as you're coming in to be looking a little bit further ahead, like, hey, it's cold. Make sure you bring an extra jacket. Make sure this next section is going to be dry. So let's leave the TA with 2 water bottles, not 1. It's all those little details that if you can get them solved before you get there, that's even better. And obviously, like Matt said, later in the race, a longer race, you're going to start forgetting those things and you still need to communicate. So, I mean, I have a hard time believing. I have heard that maybe Seagate doesn't really chat much when they're in the TA, but I don't know. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having to be able to talk. It's more important, actually. You don't want to be sitting there chatting with the photographers or the outside people. Communicating with each other is huge. And if you can come into a TA and not, have a full blown rummage sale and picnic going on between eating and, your crap dumped all over the place, even better. Basically, we try not to even eat in the TA. You come in and you focus, and as you're leaving the TA, that's when you're eating. And then obviously sometimes they'll trick you and entice you with hot water and meals there, and then, go for it. But it's the idea is that you don't just come in and sit down. You need to come in and immediately start moving. And yeah, I think having one person who's kind of on the ball with leading the team, like if you want to call him the captain of the TA, it's definitely helpful, because then you don't have a bunch of people just shouting orders out. And so again, pre-race, if I have time, I'll make up my cheat sheet that's in the bins is also in my backpack, so that, I can't remember what's next either. But when you come in, you just have, pull out the sheet and be like, hey, this is what I remember writing down. This is what we need to do. Let's get in and get out. So, but like Matt mentioned, though, if any input from the maps, whether he might not have that section with him out there on the course, we might have to wait till we get to the box before we can have some questions answered. Or the race we just did out in California, we got each section as we came in. So we knew what was coming next for the most part, but, or even Eco Challenge, geez, we didn't know what we were going to do until you got the next set of maps and be like, oh, hey, we're going to go paddleboard now. So obviously you can't always lock in coming into the TA what's happening next, but 99% of the time we have a good general idea of what's going to happen and what we need to do.
Do you plan for any overages on those estimates, or are you just locked into what you've got? Because we've had a lot of expedition races where the weather's atrocious and all the estimates are blown to bits. And you've got your little bag of skimpy warm weather clothes, and all of a sudden it's a hurricane. What do you do in that situation when plans are going awry?
And it kind of depends on how much extra space you can squeeze into the box, right? I mean, sometimes you can literally go bare minimum of you're even pulling out some things because you just don't have the space or it's overweight. And, I'll sacrifice a jacket for a bottle of Coke. I mean, it's just it's your priorities. But usually what works the best is actually, especially for the bike box, because most of the time where you're going to get into some trouble with weather is usually the hardest time to handle it is either paddling or biking for the most part, unless you have a big monster mountain trek. So I'll keep an extra bag of just extra maybe an extra set of rain gear, extra, a warm layer, maybe a few, maybe 5 extra hours of food that if you have to break into that and pick it out, no big deal. Same thing for resupplies of extra Advil or extra sunscreen, toilet paper, whatever. You kind of have that in one separate bag, so it's out of the way. But if you come in and you're short something or you're going to need it, where to go to access that. Because as the race goes on too, and it sounds like it happened in Expedition Oregon where just people's bike boxes just actually got heavier, because you end up dumping extra stuff in there. But if you can keep a bag, separate of, hey, I didn't use these arm warmers. They're clean, they're dry in the last section. So they're going to go in my extra bag because maybe I'll need them later. If you can shift some stuff around, that's awesome. And then there's other times where you'll be like, okay, guys, we're not going to see bin B for like 3 days. So don't leave anything in there that you think you're going to need in the next section. I mean, hopefully you've worked that out pre-race, but sometimes that, you don't want to get to the next section and be short, something critical.
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. Like ideally I put like the bag of stuff that I know I'm going to take, and then maybe another one, or put like the extra stuff at the bottom of it or whatever. And then, yeah, like if you think it's going to be cold or hot, or it's going to be longer and you're going to be hungry, or you didn't like I didn't like the food I had last time, and I have the different food at the bottom, or what, or something like that. That seems to work pretty good. And then you have the mandatory, the stuff that that you need, and then the optional extra stuff down lower or in a different bag. That works pretty good.
How often do you run into the scenario where you pack up your bike box with everything and then you realize there's something you need out of it and have to unpack your bike box? Does that ever happen to you guys?
You mean like a set of maps or something? Yeah, that happens.
Yes.
Okay, good.
I mean,
I feel more human now.
Yeah, the biggest thing is make sure you don't turn that box in before you, in case you make that mistake. But it happens every once in a while. We're in such a big, you're kind of a little bit frantic in the TA, and I may have, Matt needs his insoles moved from one pair of shoes to another. So if I threw his bike shoes in the box and I forgot to pull his insoles out, we got to go get them. I mean, it happens.
But that's also where the checklist and the notes that you made beforehand help, because hopefully everyone's somewhat close getting ready at the same time. And you can say, okay, Mary, I have 10 hours of food and I have a jacket and we have the maps for section 6, and that's whatever maps this is. And you can do a quick little double check that you have lights that work and batteries and the stuff you need. Like that's, if you have a few little notes like that makes a big difference when you're rushing out. And you can take, that's 15 seconds to do a double check that you have everything. That will save you going back into the box or digging out, taking things out of the rental truck or something. So
did that a couple
One
times.
question from
I was going to say, we're going to get
in Oregon. We came into TA. I guess, Mary, this may not apply to you since you guys slept like an hour out on the trail. But we came into TA for a planned sleep. I was really bonking at this point, like not physically, but just tiredness. And knew I was going to be hitting a sleep. So I didn't take any caffeine for like the last couple hours headed into TA so I could get a really good sleep. I was basically passing out as I came into TA. And I basically wanted to get into the tent first, as opposed to packing up my bike box. I'm curious, like when you guys come into a TA, if you're like really tired and smashed, like you take the time to pack everything up so that when you're done sleeping, it's basically like a get up, put your clothes on and go. I couldn't decide if it'd be faster, like to do that as a groggy waking up, packing my bike, or like I'm sleepy, I need to sleep. Should I pack my bike now? I just wasn't sure how you guys handle that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And it kind of varies maybe person to person or the situation. If you're coming in and you're just wrecked, the best thing you could do is throw some food in your mouth and just lay down and make sure you've communicated beforehand. Hey, set the alarm. This is what we're going to do. But if you come in and you're wet, the obvious thing is you might as well just come in and, TA into your next set of clothes and then lay down. Ideally, I prefer to TA first and then lay down and sleep. But the problem is sometimes when you're in a TA, you kind of actually wake up and it's harder to then go back and lay down. Especially if, I don't know, if somebody's there or somebody's talking or you found some amazing food that you forgot you had or something. But ideally, I think it's better to TA first so that when you wake up, you can just kind of, all you got to do is put your shoes on and go. But at the same sense, if you're wrecked, you're going to probably benefit more from just laying down, as long as everyone's on the same page to do that. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Matt? I feel like we've kind of done both depending on the situation.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I think ideally maybe it's better to TA first, but it's not always that's not always how it works out, because yeah, sometimes you're just too tired and it's better just to go to sleep. Like I think, remember when we did Oregon 2 years ago, and after the long bike ride before we paddled down the Deschutes River, I think we've
was
slept
dark zone.
first, because I remember going down and I filtered some water, and you guys and Charles had some water. We boiled some water, but then I think we slept, because I remember building bike or packing our bikes up and getting the pack rafts ready at the same time. So I don't know. Yeah,
That was a dark zone, so you kind of like knew you had, some time to get that all figured out too. So
that's true. Yep.
I mean, ideally, I don't recommend sleeping in a TA. They're usually loud. There's usually generators. There's usually people coming and going. So honestly, if you can basically transition and then, get a mile out of town and then pass out and lay down, that's kind of where you're going to get your best sleep. But then again, if there's tents provided or something else you guys are looking for, then, or it is quiet, then go for it. But ideally, you kind of would be better if you could get actually out of the TA, and then you lose actually less time that way.
We had chosen TA because it allowed us to have like the sleeping bags and the tent, and everything, without having to carry it. But
no, that's true too. It's really dependent on what's happening weather-wise and what's going on. I mean, if you're about to be, eaten alive by mosquitoes like out east, you kind of want to go climb into a tent that you don't want to carry out on the course, but maybe you have it in your bike box and can, throw something up. Same thing with your bivy or your sleeping bag, totally. But I think when it comes down to it, if you're totally wrecked, just come in, grab your sleeping pad and bag and just lay down. But make sure you kick those shoes and socks off.
Yeah.
At least get that part off.
And then
by plenty of mosquitoes in Michigan, Mary.
None. We have none.
Kate had a question.
I was just wondering, whether you guys ever set an intention going into in that like really important conversation going into TA to say like, we are going to spend, 20 minutes. That's our aim. Or like, or if you would ever like actually time yourselves or like have
every time.
Okay.
I hit the stopwatch the second I check in, and then I'm the jerk that's going, guys, it's been 10 minutes, let's go. But it's kind of important to give those little time checks, because it is amazing, as you guys have found out, it's like a time warp. You can be in there and what you think is 5 minutes has been 20. It's just, if you can stay on top of it and keep everybody aware, like, hey guys, our goal is 10 minutes. Let's make it 10 minutes. Again, pre-chatting before you come into the transition. And, and obviously it's going to vary if you got to build a bike and, put a pack raft together or whatever. All those things take time, but, everyone's got to do that same thing in the TA. So it's just a matter of, what do we do first? And let's get this done in 20 minutes. Let's get out.
Yeah. And like having the experience to know what is a good goal is a deal too. Cause I raced on a team one time, and coming into the actually would be like after a few minutes in transition, someone would announce that we need to be done in 7 minutes. And it didn't matter whether we were going from a trek to an orienteering section, or if we were going from bikes to pack rafts. Like obviously bikes to pack rafts is going to take a lot longer because there's more to do and more junk to organize and stuff. And so it's something to be, and it's something to be aware of, like what's reasonable. Like every transition is not going to be 12 minutes. Every transition is going to be, it's going to be different. So it's some experience to know and have an idea of what's coming up. But and that's
how long does it take you to pack a bike?
3 minutes. But that actually brings up another point. If you come in especially when you have multiple big bike sections, another thing to talk about is, hey, are we taking care of our bike now, or when we get to the other end and need to ride it again. Like you can't have two people lubing chains and cleaning bikes and the other two people are like, let's go. And then you get to the other end or you get to the next transition. You're like, hey guys, I need to lube my chain. But like so-and-so's mad because he did it in the last one. It's better to do all that, agree to do that one step or before. Same thing if somebody's done ahead of the rest of the team, then they go do the bikes. They go check them, they go lube, tires, whatever. It's those kind of steps that you want to remind yourselves to take care of, when it's needed and when there's time. And if you come in and we've learned the hard way in the jungle mud, you come in and you don't take care of your mud off your chain and your drivetrain. When you go, maybe a day and a half later and you get your bike out of the bike box, it's turned into concrete and then you're screwed. So a lot of things, those are kind of things you got to think ahead of too. Like, hey, our bikes are trash right now. Let's wipe down the chain and then they'll be ready to go. We'll pull them out of the box and they're going to be like ready to go, as opposed to having a disaster to deal with, down the road.
Stupid follow-up question. Is 3 minutes a serious number?
Probably.
Yes. Yes.
And that's for breakdown and like getting it in the box, or just like
all I do is take off my 2 tires and drop the bike in. You lower the seat post and then put a tire in on either side. So, I guess it kind of depends on how your bike box is set up. Where you lose a lot of time with packing your bike is if you have so much like crap in your bike box and in your way. So if you can kind of keep those in maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 bags, so you just pull the bags out, get it out of your way, then throw your bike in and then pack around it. And then obviously the opposite works. When you come in and you got to pull your bike out of the box, there's usually some bags and gear in your way. Hopefully you're not like, trying to crawl in your box to find that one skewer or, a sock or something. If it's all contained, it's a lot easier to just unpack and repack without having a garage sale out there.
All right, Tom, you got to give Kit a chance. Go for it, Kit.
Hey, I'm just wondering how much you guys take advantage of like divvying up tasks when you get into the TAs, like, oh, one person's going to fill up the waters, one person's cleaning all 4 bikes.
It kind of comes down to who needs what. Maybe someone's got to run off to the bathroom. Obviously they're going to be taking care of that. So then they're going to need some help later. Or maybe your navigator has to, he's got to do all the maps. So again, it's kind of one of those things you basically come in and take care of yourself. And then if you're ready to go, help the next teammate get himself organized, herself organized, whatever. If water's going to be a hike or you're going to get it on the way out, then that's another thing you talk about. Like, don't worry about the water bottles right now. We're going to all pass it, at the first checkpoint or whatever. But the biggest thing is, bottom line is, whoever's done first starts to work on those extra tasks to help everybody else, whether it's lubing chains or, even carrying bins over to the truck, or packing the paddle bag. A good thing is when you come in off a paddle, everyone just puts their stuff in a common pile that's going back in the bag, and then worry about packing that bag later. Like, wait till someone's ready to go. Then that's their job. They go over and start packing the paddle bag, which actually just throws me off on another little tangent. Another good thing about efficient TAs is keep everybody together. It doesn't help if you have somebody 10 feet away from you, because a lot of times you're sharing things or to communicate, or maybe you don't want to shout across the way that, hey, we got to bring our climbing gear or our secret something around other teams. It's best to just have everybody as close together as possible, because then you won't lose something, you won't leave something behind, and then you can, everyone will hear what's going on. But if someone goes off to the bathroom or something and you don't know where they are, it kind of gets things confusing and slow. So the biggest thing is, keeping everyone together and close by. Sorry, I don't know if that answered your question.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I have a question. How do you? It's a strange one, like a philosophical question. How do you balance the like the need to do things that are kind of mandatory with the idea of moving faster? Meaning like I don't need to change my socks, but I could, or like I don't need to do this, but I could do that. Like I always struggle with that because I try to TA as quickly as possible, but occasionally I find myself, like in Florida this year, I found myself wearing a crappy pair of shoes on that crazy trek because I didn't feel like changing them because I was insistent we had to keep moving. How do you like I don't
Yeah.
let me try how to like phrase the question, but like how do you balance that need to like I can suffer a little bit through this, or I
Comfort
should,
versus comfort.
yeah. Like I
Yeah.
know it's different for different lengths of races too.
Yeah, it's totally situational with what's going on, but for the most part, I mean, I'm a big fan of don't skimp on your feet. If you need to take care of your feet, just do it. Anytime you change your shoes, change your socks. If you're coming from a paddle to a trek, most of the time, yeah, or trek to paddle is obvious, no problem, right? You just get in the boat and go. But coming off the water and then going into a trek, it is hard to wrap your head around. Okay, I really want to take my shoes off and even putting dry socks on with wet shoes is still sometimes nice, because the idea is you're actually putting clean socks on. If you're going to be working in muddy, sandy socks out on a trek, it sucks. You're going to end up with a blister in no time. So some of those things, again, that's where I think communication is huge. Like, hey guys, I'm going to change my socks, or let's all change our socks. If it's, or maybe you just, take your backup pair of socks out on the course with you. And then if you need them, then you stop. I mean, any treks that are longer than, I don't know, Matt, what is it? Maybe longer than 12 hours or so. We usually bring an extra pair of socks, because it's amazing what happens if, if you come through, you've been crossing water and mud or whatever, 3 minutes of swapping your socks out can make you move so much faster. So, some of those little things that you want to take care of, I guess it kind of depends what they are. And, part of your race experience is it really necessary? But it's rough out there. If it's going to make you happy, go for it. But just kind of let everybody else know what's going on. Or, hey, you got all your crap together early, then, your reward is, I'm going to take care of this extra stuff, or I'm going to do this or whatever. But again, it's a simple thing. Like, if you're going to throw your gaiters on, you got to think ahead of time, right? Because if you put your shoes on and then you realize your gaiters actually need to go on first, those are one of those things that either that gets sacrificed and you don't put them on, or you got to take the time to take them off, and to keep going.
That's helpful. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I like in a 12-hour race, like,
Yeah.
I'll suffer through anything. But
Yep.
like, I feel like I always have a 12-hour mindset, even if it's 4 days. Like, I've always
Yeah,
got the mindset of just like suffer through it. Like, yeah, like I don't need that coat, I'll be fine. Like, yeah, like forget the shirt at the bottom of the bag. We're gonna keep on moving.
Yeah, when it comes to expedition racing, the biggest thing is like feet are my first priority of not having that 12-hour mentality of, yeah, let's just suffer through it. Because even this last race I did was 30 hours and I did it all on one pair of socks, and my feet were like angry, because I think they're used to expedition racing where we might do a 30-hour leg with the same pair of socks on, but for the most part, you're transitioning more often. And every time I change shoes, I change socks. Whereas I think in the 30-hour race, I was just being lazy. But, by the last trek, I was kind of, I may have had a blister starting to form, and that if I would have had another long trek, it would have sucked. So if you can take care of those things, and yeah, I mean, take care of your feet, and then having that extra bit of clothing and maybe a couple of things of food are like those bare minimums that you don't want to skimp on those things in an expedition race that will definitely haunt you later.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, to me, especially in an expedition race and early in the expedition race, it's easy to think, oh, my feet I have a little hot spot, but they'll be fine. But then if you get a blister, or your feet aren't doing good a day later, like then you're in rough shape. So especially early in the expedition race, sometimes it's better to take a little bit more care of your feet or whatever you're doing. Like, if it's going to impact how you're going to be doing a day later, then it's something to take care of. But if it's the last transition and you have 3 or 4 hours left or something, then yeah, I would say, oh, I can have a blister for 3 hours, but I don't want to have a blister for 3 days.
Good point, Matt.
Why don't we go to Eric next? Eric, what's on your
Thanks. Thanks, you guys. This is great to just kind of hear your insights. One of the things that I've observed and experienced is TAs can be completely different. One TA can be in like paved parking lot where you can set all your gear down and you can find it easily. And other times it's in knee-high grass. I'm curious what strategies you use and what you might keep on board, so to speak, for your TAs that are the situation where like, oh my God, where'd my skewer go? Because how many times have people had that same problem? Like, I set my skewer down when I was putting the wheel in, and now I can't find it, and it's dark and whatever. So I'm just curious what strategies you use to. It's more of a gear question than like how you think about it question, but maybe there's both involved.
No, I mean, that's a good point. Like the lids of the bin work great for extra little things that you're trying to keep from getting lost. In my bike box, I keep a really small piece of thermarest that's like, I don't know, about as wide as I am and maybe like 3 or 4 feet, so that when I pull it out of the box, I can, like, if you come into a spot that's full of mud or gravel or something you don't want to put your fragile feet down on, you just throw that little thermarest down, and then you can stand on that while you're dealing with your toe, taking care of your feet and getting your shoes and socks off or building your bike, whatever. So you have something on your feet. Some people keep really like super lightweight flip-flops in their bike box too, so that you're not in the mud, not in the wet, but yet your feet are still able to dry out. And then, if you have like a plastic bag or whatever, if you just lay that down, or even like a little piece of Tyvek tarp, I've kept before too, that super lightweight, just tucked in the side of your bike box. You can use that to, lay your gear out on. Ideally, hopefully you're not needing to, if you pull your bag out of what you need, you can it should immediately go in your backpack, and you shouldn't need to spread things out too badly. But, bike parts, I have a Ziploc bag taped to the inside of my box so that my brake shims, as soon as those come out, those go in the Ziploc bag. Same thing with, I have any tools that I need, it's just whatever you pull out, put it immediately back away, and then you won't really lose those things. I heard at Oregon, somebody did, I think main nerve, they did lose a skewer. Because I don't know how that happens, because I feel like when you take your wheel off, you put your skewer back in, but maybe that doesn't work for everybody. But anytime you set anything down, keep it together. And if you can put even a small towel works good too, to spread out and put your small stuff on or whatever you're trying to get organized. That's all I can, those are just a couple of things I've had to use, I guess. I don't know.
Anything to add, Matt, or should we move on to Dave's question?
I don't have anything. I use the maps from the last section usually.
I think we could do an entire hour-long session on what people have done with used maps, because I've seen some pretty creative uses for them. Dave, what's on your mind?
Hey, so I was one of those photographer people that was annoying you in the transition areas, but I thought it was fascinating to see the difference between what your team was doing and some of the other teams that made the difference of half an hour versus an hour and a half in transition. But my question is, in the past, what is there anything that sticks out to you as like a major like mistake that you made in transition that that really taught you something?
I don't know. Matt, what have I done wrong? I don't know. I think I left the rules of travel behind one time. That made me mad. Nothing's jumping out at me other than maybe I did forget to do, maybe I forgot to grab a certain article of clothing because I knew we weren't going to see that bin at the next TA. So I really had to like leapfrog it 2 TAs away. So maybe like a pair of trekking pants or something. I feel like I've done that before, or a pair of gaiters. You know, those kinds of things. Ideally, if you can have multiple sets of something so that you don't have to carry on a bike leg for a trek leg that's going to be down the road. You know, even like extra sets of trekking poles. Again, all these things add weight to your bins, but if you can avoid having to mentally think about, hey, I gotta remember to grab those because I need them, you know, 2 days from now, and I'm not going to see this bin ever again. So I could see, I feel like I've left like a small, you know, item of clothing or something, but nothing like catastrophic. I think I've been lucky. But again, that's where that little cheat sheet notes come into handy so that you don't, that when you walk out of the TA, you're all like, okay, guys, everybody got, you know, this, and this, we got, you know, and everyone's like, yep. And then you go. Usually when we do that, we don't have a problem, or at least one that I remember, or I'm willing to admit. I don't know. I've blocked it out of my mind. I don't know. Nothing's jumping out at me right now.
I mean,
Yeah, I
that
think
doesn't
those are the
surprise me
ones-
because you guys did seem like so organized and efficient when you got into that TA. Like there was hardly between you and the other teams, like you guys hardly talked at all in the TA, and the other teams would be like having these conversations.
That's because I don't know Spanish. But you're right. I mean, that's a good example of communication. Like we had a little chat before we came in, and then yeah, I barely need to say anything to the guys, and I'm not sure they would have understood me anyway. But I heard a little bit of chatter between them, and then as we were leaving, again, you know, we had a gear check or something, but we would just do the last little bit. Everybody got this, and this, and you know, and we're out. So yeah, it's all about keeping everybody on that same mindset, that same page, and it keeps you all moving, you know, kind of the same line of thing, or the same train of thought to get through the TA and get out of the TA with what you need.
Matt, you look like you had something to say. Maybe you still do.
I don't think I do. I think I was going to say that those mistakes are something we try to forget. We try to correct the lesson and then forget. We try to learn the lesson, but forget the instance maybe. But I don't. Yeah, like I mean, knock on wood. We, you know, like keeping track, like really good notes of your maps for the next section, and like that's like I you know, we see teams forget their map, you know, like top teams forget their maps or are missing a map for the next section all the time. Like I hear about that. I've heard about that a lot. And then like Mary said, the keeping track of the passport, like things like that those are like the catastrophic mistakes that hopefully we can avoid.
And bibs are another number one, easily left behind in a TA, so that as you're leaving the TA, you know, everyone looking at each other, we all wearing our matching gigantic bibs. Awesome. Let's keep going. But those are very easy. Probably the number one thing you could probably leave behind, especially if you come in off a paddle where it's wet and you have to take everything off. That bib going back on is usually kind of the first thing you want to, you know, if you take it off to put your clothes on, get it back on, because that's super easy to leave behind.
Someone on screen left a passport somewhere at some point in Florida. I won't name names. And
I would just like to mention that was the very first time I've ever responsible for a passport in my life. Never again.
And the last.
I didn't let him touch it in Oregon. That's not true. You did. But yeah, I think that's a big one. And then in the World Series races, you see people leave trackers behind here and there. And that's always a penalty that I see pop up from one team in every race. One thing so we were lucky enough to be right opposite Marco's room after Oregon, and Marco was Mary's teammate on the winning team there. And excuse the airplane going over. I don't know if you can hear it. But he mentioned something that really stuck in my head, which was that everything you do as a team. Like you're basically not stopping till 3 people or 4 people need to stop. I'm curious how that extends into transitions and basically that philosophy you were talking about, like two people are doing their bikes. We're doing all 4 bikes or none of them. Like maybe you can expound on that a little bit on like how
Yeah.
that team first philosophy comes into the transitions.
I think again, that's all part of your communication beforehand. Like, hey, as we're coming in, I need to do this. And then everyone's like, okay. And then, if, I keep using bathroom as like the number one thing, right? Because basically someone might need to take care of some business and meanwhile, everyone else is doing other things. And then I've had a teammate where basically we all did what we needed to do. And like 2 minutes out of the TA, he's like, I gotta stop. And we're like, no. So it's really important to just like, oh my gosh, I totally just lost my train of thought. Oh, like to be doing the same thing, but if you have to do something special, like I used to earlier in my racing, I always had to put an ankle brace on before trekking sections. And that takes a couple extra minutes. So I would let everybody know, hey guys, I got to put my brace on. So you might be faster. So can somebody get my water bottle? It's that kind of stuff that if you know you need to do something that your teammates don't, then maybe you can ask them to help you do something else that they, like filling water bottles or something. Or, if the same thing with going to, if we're going to sleep, then let's, transition together and then sleep, or we're going to sleep and then transition. It's those kind of things that you all want to be doing the same thing so that you're all getting up at the same time and getting your bikes under control or whatever.
Does that extend to clothing choices? I was curious about that because like different people run different temperatures. Are you guys all putting your jackets on at the same time, or as you go out of the TA, you're all wearing the same layers? Like what?
Pretty much that's where it's important, where Matt would be able to tell us, hey guys, we have we're going to be climbing a hill for an hour. Don't, maybe that's where in your bike box, you have just a little, we'll keep like a little down jacket. So that if you come in, you throw an outer layer on, get all your normal clothes on, throw your warm layer on over the top, and then be ready to strip that off when it's go time. Because yeah, it's ideally you don't want to have to stop later to deal with that stuff. So, and we did that in the race. That was part of the, I'd hear all this Spanish. I'd be like, is there something I need to know? And they'd go, we're all putting our knee warmers on and we're all putting our jackets on. And so we would do that. And that way, for the most part, we would, if we needed to stop or we knew we had a big climb or a descent or whatever, then we would all remove the same types of clothing. And you're right. Sometimes like I run a lot colder than some of my teammates. When I race with Kyle, I always knew he'd be 1 to 2 layers less than whatever I was wearing. And the guys got used to like, hey, Mary, throw on your jacket because we're going to do a big descent, but they didn't need to do that, but they knew I would need to. So it's those kind of things that if you can keep jackets handy, so that you're not starting and stopping a lot once you get out of the TA, that's super, super huge to keep those things in mind. Yeah, I think, does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. That blew my mind, quite honestly. Like, I know it sounds really simple to you, but when you're starting as a racer, everyone's doing their own thing. And we've gotten to the point now where we're talking ahead about it, but everyone's still kind of on their own pages a little bit. And I think that's really a jump to that elite level where everyone on the team is, doing things in sync with each other. That's a tough jump to make.
Well, and like clothing choices, like let's say you're coming in off a bike and then you're going to go do a big trek. That's another good thing. Like, hey, is everybody taking their biking shorts off and we're switching to running, tights or something? Or am I the only one that needs to do that? Because if I am, I'll probably just suck it up and run in my tri shorts. So those kind of things are also good to know what's going on with your teammates. Like, hey, they're going to swap into, their other pants because they can't wear their bike shorts while they run. And that's totally cool and reasonable. It gets back to the one guy who said, what do I sacrifice for timing? But if we knew ahead of time, like, hey, we have a 10-hour trek, get out of your bike shorts. If you're going to do it, and have that in your mind that that's something that you personally need to do when you come into the transition. And, maybe I don't need to do that, but if you do it fast enough and you remind yourself that that's what your plan is, it'll all happen. I mean, obviously you're not all going to be wearing the same stuff and doing everything all the time. but it's good to be kind of aware of who's doing what so that you can be like, oh yeah, hey, that's a good idea. I'm going to do that too. Or, hey guys, remember, bring an extra pair of socks when we leave because, you know, we might need them after we do a swim. You know, anything like that is helpful that somebody might think of that it's good to share with the group because
Yeah, that's what I was
because
just
later,
gonna say was,
if I pull out something and be like, oh, it would have been great if you would have told me to do that. You know, those kind of things are key.
yeah, I was gonna say kind of that same thing. Like those are all really good examples. And besides being efficient, like a lot of the time it makes you more comfortable with decision making by committee. Like, are we all gonna wear our rain pants on the paddle? Or are we all gonna start up riding our bikes with the jacket or no jacket, like whatever, like then everyone's on the same page. They're like, if you have everyone's comfortable and you all have to do the same thing at the same time. Yeah, just like you're saying, Mary, like sometimes if the other three teammates are all going to wear their rain pants and you weren't going to, oh, well, maybe I need to rethink that because I'm going to get cold and be uncomfortable. So, and then I'll have to stop, you know, and it goes back to, then I'll have to stop and put my rain pants on and I'll be that guy.
Don't be that guy.
Yeah, I don't want to be Matt.
That's my whole philosophy in adventure racing. Don't be that guy. Cool. This has been so amazing. Like I said, we've roped Eric Sanders in, and I think we may get an Olaf and Whitney double as well.
You don't want Olaf.
That's what Eric said too.
You want Whitney, and Eric's good, but yeah, no Olaf.
All right. Well, we'll keep that in the back of our heads as we tune in next week. And we'd love, if you guys want to join us, you're welcome to. But does anyone have any last questions before we wrap this up? It's been about an hour. We got 3 minutes left. Anyone has any last thoughts?
Just thank you for doing this. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Transition solved.
Yeah, we figured it out.
Done. Easy. All right, guys. Thank you so much, Mary, Matt, for sharing with us. This was
No
awesome.
problem.
Oh,
If you
you're
guys have
welcome.
more questions, you can always, you know, send them to Cliff. We can email you back or whatever too. It's no big deal. Sometimes I know I talk fast, but maybe we can describe things a little bit better, writing. I don't know.
You guys did great, but thank you.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Good to see everybody.
We'll see y'all
Yep,
next
good
week.
talking to everyone.
See ya.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.